Hello.
Percy, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good, just fine.
All right.
Hello
Ma.
to everyone. Gonna give the gang a few minutes to get in here. Have you had a good day, Percy?
Pretty busy, but a good day. Productive, and you?
Agreed, concur. Busy, but a
Okay.
good day. Very productive.
Well, this is my first BBC chat, at least
It
being
is,
a
and we're so
panelist.
excited to have
Oh
you.
my gosh. Hopefully I can contribute and add value. So
You absolutely will.
I was telling Talisha that I prepared a couple of slides and maybe that'll be useful for the conversation. So,
Awesome. We cannot wait.
all right.
Hey, Eric. It'll just be Eric, Talisha, and I tonight. Cherie
Mhm.
wasn't feeling well, and Dr. Keisha had another obligation.
Right. Yeah, she gave me a call and yeah, it'll be fine. How are you, Eric?
Oh, oh, oh. Hey, how you doing?
Great, and you?
Yes,
Good,
fine.
good, good. Oldest son was talking to me. Looking forward to this.
All right.
We'll give Talisha a minute or so to come in. Here she comes now.
Hello.
Hello, hello. You sound a little low, Talisha.
How's that?
Still low.
How's that?
Hmm.
So.
How's that?
It's better, but you're still much lower than you usually are, but that's better.
I don't know what it is because I don't have anything else running in the background.
Mm.
Yeah, that's weird because you're usually louder than that.
Yeah, I'm not. There's nothing in the background. I'm gonna quit that. Let's see. Better?
That's better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
All right.
Yep. All right. Who's getting this party started? Or do I need to share? Oh, hold on. I need to go live on Facebook, don't I?
Yes, in our group.
Since I started it. Okay, hold on. Let's see.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hello, everyone.
so nice to see you, Percy.
Thank you. Glad to be here on my first BBC panel chat.
Yeah.
I've been listening in though the past couple of weeks, but my first time being on camera.
We love it. We love group participation.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
You got it? Okay. So you go on, Miss Tawana.
I don't think we're live yet. Hold on. I'm hitting the
Okay.
button. Let's see.
If not, we can just always post it after the fact too.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining. You know, if it's Wednesday, it's our blockchain chat. It is Talisha Shine, which I'm going to be hosting this evening since we, Ms. Cherie and Dr. Keisha are away at this point, but this is why you get a few of us at different points in time. So we are joined this wonderful evening by one of our newest members, Mr. Percy Rose, and I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves and then you can jump into the presentation.
Okay.
Ms. Tawana, introduce yourself.
I am Tawana Rivers, the Chief Operating Officer here at Black Blockchain Consultants, and super excited to welcome Percy into the fold. It's always wonderful when our members come and join us, and you know, Percy has a presentation, which is awesome, and we're just super excited to learn what this wonderful young man has to tell us tonight.
Mr. Eric.
Yes, Eric Spence, President Blockchain Consortium International, tokenization cult leader, trying to get this thing. So that's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, y'all in white robes, you know, dancing around. But that's it.
Let's come up with our symbol.
Yeah. But that's it. You know, really excited always to come in and talk blockchain with our group, and I'm really excited to hear what Percy has to present.
And Mr. Percy.
All right, Percy Rose. I'm actually brand new to blockchain, so that's so you know, becoming a blockchain consultant is, you know, we're going to put the emphasis on becoming. But I spent a lot of years as a consultant, actually 12 years as a consultant with Accenture, and I work for Hewlett Packard Enterprise now, and I kind of see myself as more of an internal consultant, looking at how can we implement technology to help our customers increase their efficiency, achieve the outcomes that they're interested in achieving. So I bring that perspective to marry that with my interest in blockchain. And so I do have just a couple of slides tonight to just at least talk from the perspective of a consulting mindset, right? And so as I continue to learn from you all about, you know, blockchain technology, I think that we can kind of bring some other aspects to the table about just in general, what does a consultant do when they're going and talking to a customer, and how do you help guide the customer? So, you know, I have some things to say around that.
Well, we are excited to hear. So you can go ahead and share your screen.
All right. So in my work, what I mainly focus on, and especially what I've gotten really passionate about over the past, I would say year and a half, 2 years, is a field called customer success. And many people might know it's one of the top, if you look on LinkedIn, it's one of the most in-demand fields along with blockchain. It's one of the most in-demand fields in the technology industry. Because I think what businesses have learned over time is that they're going and grabbing at technology and say, hey, I hear my competitor is doing this. I need to do that SAP thing or that Salesforce thing or that blockchain thing or that Oracle thing. And they don't really understand how they can take that technology and get the most value out of it. And so in the customer success field, it really looks at how do you work with a customer and define what are the success criteria? What do those success metrics look like? Help them work backwards to the technology. And so I have just a couple of slides to share as, you know, kind of an example of what we would want a customer to think about. Please let me know when you see my screen.
Just holding on it. Looks like it's coming up now. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, I'll make this a kind of a slide share mode. So in the work that I do, I try to use this statement as really a guiding principle. And this applies to whether you're using blockchain or any technology. So what do our customers want, right? They want, number one, a trusted partner. So you got to have that relationship, but they want a trusted partner who's going to deliver ongoing business outcomes. That's number two. from complex technology, of which blockchain, I think, fits into that category. And they want you to be easy to do business with while delivering those outcomes, right? So there are three pieces of the puzzle. So if I'm to put myself in the shoe of a blockchain consultant, and if I'm thinking about going and talking to small business, medium business, large business, enterprise level business, these are really the things that I want to be thinking about. If it were me, I really want to be thinking about putting myself in that customer's shoes and understand what they want. So I'll emphasize on kind of the two pieces of this: outcomes and easy to do business with. Outcomes is kind of an overused word. If you look across the industry, outcomes is often mistaken for outputs. And there are two different things: outputs and outcomes. So an output is, let's just say, I go into work with a customer and I deliver a blockchain solution. Many people confuse that with an outcome, and that is not an outcome. That is an output. The customer is coming to us to get a technology because they're trying to achieve something else, right? So ultimately, what do they, they believe, for whatever reason, their competitors are doing this, or their friend has implemented blockchain, or they've heard rumors that this could help them. So they want to grab at the technology. All the while, many times they don't have a very clear idea of the outcome that they're trying to achieve. So first and foremost, what I like to do, and I look at this organization called TSIA, Technology Service Industry Association. I don't know if you all have heard of it, but it's very, very common that enterprise vendors and suppliers will go to TSIA and understand, what are customers looking for? How are the best ways that we can work with our customers? What are the trending technologies? What are the methodologies that we should put in place? So TSIA is kind of the main trusted source for technology industry. Their kind of competition, I guess you could say, is Gartner, right? But TSIA is specific to the technology industry, and they're highly, highly respected. And they have a couple of books, et cetera. So they have a categorization of what are typical outcomes. When you're bringing any complex technology, what are those typical outcomes? And so I like to try to break that down. And so they've put it into three buckets. They've basically said, whenever you're going to, with your product, with your, whether that's a physical product, let's say it's a software, or you're going with a service, your customer is going to want at least one of these three things. The more of these areas that you can check off, the better, right? So customers are going to want you to mitigate risk. They're going to want you to reduce cost, and they're going to increase revenue. The more boxes you can check off, the more valuable you are to them. And in terms of value for customer, it goes from left to right. Mitigating risk is actually the least valuable. Increasing revenue is the most valuable. And so just taking an example, if I have a service and that service is just simply, if something goes wrong, or if I'm, let's say if I have a Wi-Fi service or something like that, and the only thing I do is show up to the customer's door if the Wi-Fi goes down, or if the Wi-Fi is just not coming on for a couple of days, it's kind of an insurance policy. They've basically come into contact with me and they've gotten my service because they believe that I'm going to be able to help them mitigate that risk. But the more value I can add while building that relationship, the better, right? When I can go into the realm of helping them reduce their costs or optimizing how their environment is operating, and also maybe identifying opportunities for them on how they can increase their revenue, engage with their end customers on how to increase their revenue, that brings me up the value chain then that helps me become the trusted advisor, right? If you can do these three things, I mean, and if you just think about it logically, what customer is going to leave you if you're helping increase their revenue and helping them save money? No customer is going to leave you if you're doing that. So to go in the door with that mindset of, you know, if a customer comes and says, hey, give me that blockchain solution, I heard it's great. The first thing for us to, I believe, is to do is ultimately figure out where do they fit and then what problem are they trying to solve? Is it a security? Are they coming into the door because they think that, you know, this solution could help make them more secure? And you'll see kind of some drill down sub areas within these buckets. If they want help mitigating risk, that could range from strategic, financial, operational, compliance. You know, a lot of times, especially large international companies, global companies, they're compliance concerns, right? And so how can, you know, do you have a solution in place that could help us mitigate risk from a compliance perspective? Operational risk, you know, you work in the computing space. Many companies are trying to figure out how their technology can keep the plane flying, keep their business running as efficiently as possible. And so then if you go into the realm of reducing cost, a lot of times headcount is on the table. Many companies are looking for, you know, if I have 100 IT professionals, how could I potentially use the solution or technology that you're bringing to the table to help not necessarily get rid of those 100, but maybe I can put those people in more value add positions. That's in my discussions with customers over the years. That's often the idea. So not so much how can I get rid of people, but a lot of times the people are not in value add positions, which renders them, you know, just not so important for the company. But if you can bring technology in to take care of the day-to-day work, then maybe you can repurpose some of those people to get into positions where they're maybe helping drive down costs or increase revenue. And so you have other sub buckets, say underneath the reducing costs, maybe improving you know, efficiency with other operational expenses or capital expenses. I will say with capital expenses, I'll make a point here because I've seen, I think in the 101, Blockchain 101 training, there is a section on blockchain as a service. And I thought that was really interesting and important because any technology as a any technology in the, you know, in the technology industry is going very much so in the direction of as a service. And we've seen that in pretty much all walks of life. You have car companies are going to the direction of as a service. Music industry has gone subscription a long time ago. We used to buy CDs, right? Now you don't have to buy the physical product. Customers want subscription. There are multiple reasons for that. And the main two reasons that I've seen is the risk profile. So a lot of times, especially with very expensive technology, a company will not want to pay all of that upfront capital expense, right? Because, you know, let's just say I have a company and my products are $20,000 or something like that. That's a huge capital expense upfront for some companies. And essentially what also is the problem is that shifts all of the risk on the company, right? I don't share as a supplier. I don't really share that risk, right? So I made the sale to you. That's $20,000. Now I'm off celebrating, counting my money, right? Now you're left with the product and you're essentially left to figure it out. I might show up occasionally to kind of support you or go through a period of support. But essentially, you know, and this is the traditional model, the risk profile is, you know, it immediately after sale, it shifts to the customer. Well, customers over time is like, I don't want that. I want you to share in the risk with me, right? So that's why as a service, and blockchain is going to be the same thing. That's why blockchain as a service has become, or is there, and you'll see many other areas across the industry with technologies. As a service, businesses are really, really important, because then as a supplier, you're forced to kind of share the risk and continue to add value to the customer, because you know what? At that point, you're the customer, you have not spent $20,000 upfront for this product. You're spending a monthly subscription, maybe $200, $300 a month. If I'm not doing a good job as a vendor, goodbye, I'm going to another vendor who can give me more value, right? So as a customer, that gives me far more flexibility, and I'm taking far less risk. That's why, and I'll be interested to see kind of how this plays out in the blockchain as a service space. But just typically technology across the board, a lot of companies don't want to invest a bunch of money up front. And so as a consultant, you're kind of looking at that. And you're looking at, okay, I know this company is very interested in reducing cost. First, they're probably not going to want to spend a ton of upfront capital expense. But not only that, as a consultant, if I remain engaged with them, I'm going to need to figure out a way to continuously add value, to continuously show them a way that they can leverage this technology to drive down their costs, right? So that's kind of where that capital expense bucket will.
I want to stay here for a second and interject something for you. And this is where, again, these are business principles that we're talking about. They're really, agnostic to technology and even agnostic to business. Everybody wants to do this.
Right.
And, it's not like, oh, I only want to do this if I have a wheat farm.
Right.
Every business wants to do this. And this is where the technology itself has to be really evaluated. And I think this is the conversation where blockchain speaks to all of this.
Yeah.
The inherent aspect of usage. And that's when you say, when you want to share in that risk, the actual component of blockchain is the more it's used, because it's a consensus protocol, the more rich and dense it becomes. So that is the actual thing. And you actually increase your ability of trustworthiness by having more and more engagement. And you never want to step away. That's the whole
right.
You want to participate. So it's built into the system itself. And that's one of the unique aspects and attributes of the platform, is that it really takes a lot and everybody's participation in order to be as robust as a system as possible. And each of these elements are, again, embedded into the fabric of the platform. It mitigates risk by being the level of encryption. And we talk about this a lot. In the business of blockchain, these are all the pillars right here.
Right.
The reduction of cost is simply in the sense that there's no redundancy. You cannot have 15 records of the same thing. It's not possible. The chain knows that it's not possible, and it's rewriting things only with the sense of things have changed.
Right.
And again, that increase of cost, or increase of revenue rather, is really where the tokenization, and this is what I know Eric's passion is because you can leverage things that you could never leverage anywhere else. So your revenue stream now just becomes your output. And as you said, that was a really nice caveat. The difference between an outcome and an output. Now you can monetize your output when you cannot do that in any other forum. You just can't, it's not possible. And now you have that ability all with one infrastructure. And that's the difference where you get the bang for your buck with blockchain.
Right. And so, when we go as, let's say, in a consulting type of engagement, it's so important to be able to wrap all of that technology understanding into kind of the language that they're ultimately trying to, what are you ultimately trying to go for, right? And they may try to fit into one of these sub areas, but so the first thing I would do is really try to help them get very clear on what they're trying to do. And as you say, Talisha, they're probably trying to do all three of these things, right? They're trying to do all three of these things. And so it's to kind of, maybe there are even some specific, because of compliance purposes, maybe their risk is through the roof, or because they traditionally do using, a lot of capital expense. You're kind of telling them, this is how I can help you save money, or this is how I can help your business, increase revenue, or specifically even retain customers. Maybe, through tokenization, there's a way that in this ecosystem we build that you're going to take the loyalty of your customers and bring that to a totally new level. And that's going to translate to X amount of millions of dollars increase in revenue for your company. And so, we can use a framework for these things because it's pretty simple to understand. And then as then we can kind of also do, and I'll have another slide. What I try to do is take the outcome view, and then also these companies that, let's say, we would be talking to, they have their own customers, right?
Yeah.
And essentially they have to understand what's the experience that their particular customers have with them. So you're almost trying to think 2 steps ahead. And so some of the work that I do is also with kind of customer experience. And here's just kind of an example of a customer journey map. This was done using a company called Heart of the Customer, who I've worked with before. They do journey maps. A lot of companies do journey maps. So I particularly like Heart of the Customer. And essentially, you'll have kind of a map like this, where this, for example, is YMCA. And YMCA, let's just say YMCA came to me and said, hey, I think blockchain can help me. I heard great things about it. Let's see what it can do. Well, first, I want to try to lay out, well, what are the specific outcomes that you're trying to achieve? Well, I have a problem with keeping customers. I'm retaining customers, getting customers to renew. All of these other gyms seem to have 90% renewal rate or loyalty rate on their customers. I'm way down in the 75%. And so sometimes, and not that I would do this for every customer, but it's like, even if I would have a mindset of, okay, where in your customer's journey are the biggest gaps? So for example, if this was, if we took this example, YMCA, you had a family who is, wants to become a member of YMCA. So then they're thinking, okay, for your customers, what's their experience like with you? And, this is a map which basically, and you'll see the words are kind of grayed out here. So there's nothing wrong with your screen. But essentially, this shows where are YMCA's customers feeling like, hey, it's a problem working with you, or these are main reasons why I'm just not going to renew with you. So even going to the detail of understanding what those customers have a problem with when working with YMCA. And then you can say, well, for these particular areas, you seem to have a problem with your main reasons for renewal challenges, the reason why you're at 70% and all your peers are at 90% are these particular areas. Well, I have great news for you. There's a blockchain solution that's going to help you here, right? What blockchain can help you do specifically with, I don't know, I think one thing, I read this case study and it's about finding, one of them was like having access to classes or access to pools or something like that. Well, maybe there's an information sharing problem, providing visibility to what's happening at YMCA. Maybe YMCA is not the best example, but essentially any journey map, what it's going to do is reveal the main areas that there's an issue. If it was another company, maybe it is, let's say it's Amazon, and maybe Amazon is wonderful at this, but let's just say their customers were telling them, hey, it takes way too long to get, I bought something from you a week ago. I don't have the right level of visibility on where my product is, and it always is showing up late, right? And so then you could come in and say, well, it's great because blockchain is there for you. It provides you high level of traceability, visibility. It probably has solutions that can help reduce your cost. And also we have a system that we can put in place that's actually going to help increase your revenue with this particular company or with your customers. And so what people do with journey maps is it really reveals where specifically that company might be struggling to achieve their ultimate goal. In this case, let's say it's increased revenue. So it breaks it down, and then you can give very, very specific advice and guidance on here's how blockchain or any other technology can help you. So this, these are just a couple of slides. And again, this is obviously I'm just new at blockchain and getting into the fold. But these are things that I thought might be useful as people are thinking that from a, let's say, a consulting perspective, just some of the mindset and the things that could be useful when kind of going and talking to customers. So
I love that. That's specifically this slide there, that last slide with the customer journey is really important. And I think this is where it gets convoluted. Most people want to say, okay, they understand the journey because that's language and business understanding. Right. It's what happens, what's being collected there. And that's where I think that the techie portion comes in. But if you really just describe it as this is the data, you're capturing data on these people. Most people understand that you're asking for some demographic information, some, you send out surveys, all of that is aggregated over time. And in a traditional business sense with a regular database, you have just the data and a little bit of information about the data somewhere else. Right. And that doesn't always help you when you go for somebody who wants to do data analytics. You I need this and that. And at different points of time, you're not getting all of that information. You're not really assured of where that information is coming from. That's where kind of how you bridge the gap. I always say, I don't talk tech to non-technical people because it doesn't make sense. It's not relevant. But what I do tell them is, what's their problem? People want to know what's in it for me. You don't need to tell them I can do that. And this kind of goes into your question, Dr. Sexton, and I'll get to that as well. But you address the issue with yes, we're not always going to be in what we consider the proverbial or optimized blockchain solution. We're not there, and no one is using it from a decentralized, distributed perspective. So even in those little quote unquote silos, there's still information to be gained. And again, building a system that has every business has a roadmap, or at least should, knowing where you're going. And if you can show them that, this is where your data has the potential to be better. Right. They're going to perk up. They're going to be like, what do you mean? I'm I can make this a revenue stream, not just your customers, but the data they give you as a revenue stream, would you be interested in? And they're like, yeah, okay, let's talk about that. And it's okay, this is how we do it. And I think this is speaking directly to Dr. Sexton's question, is when you're telling them all the wonderful things, it's really about how they can do business better. Yeah. And then you back into the technology. The technology has these protocols in it to secure the data, because you're always going to be like, well, how does it work? Yeah. There are things that we have in place. You may not be using it from an optimal standpoint, but it is a modular system. So even if you take part of it at the lowest level, you're still getting a large advantage that you would never have in any other system just because of the inherent attributes of it. That's the difference. I can't sell you a database. SQL is great, but it instantly has some problems. You're like, well, can it do this? No. Can it do that? No. So I have a harder sell with even the traditional aspects because you want a bigger bang for your buck. Right. Blockchain has those things. And so when you describe it to them, that it grows with your business. You have an infrastructure that you invest in, and more importantly, you do the due diligence of your customer. Your customer base is truly what you're doing. The tech is just supporting all the things you want to do and how you want to do it. So I think that really is the impetus of trying to convince people. You don't really convince them, you just show them how you solve their problem. Right. The health industry, there's a problem, and we know that there is a disconnect every step of the way. It is a very siloed system. And in order to really get the patient outcomes that we need to have a collective community of health. With these kind of technologies, we get that, and we can ensure all the HIPAA compliances and all the regulations are all adhered to because it is the part of the system. I don't have to overlay that. I don't have to go, oh, well, we need to get this certified and we need to do this extra. It's there because that's how it's built. Yeah. And then you go into the okay, and what if we could get clinical trials that, people could get monetized for, or get that information quicker and better and faster from a larger scope of individuals? We can have better conversations about real problems rather than trying to convince somebody of tech that they're never really going to understand. Right, right.
There's a caution, though, that has to be considered, because while blockchain is a solution for many things, you may not need to go that far.
Exactly.
Right? You may be able to find the efficiencies and mitigate the risk and save costs and all of those things without a blockchain solution.
Yeah.
And so as a consultant, we have to remember that also, not to do the oversell if it's not necessary. And it doesn't mean
problem
that over time, blockchain isn't the solution, but maybe it's not now.
Yeah, if we need to really address the concern rather than sell something.
Right.
I think that's really the consultant's job, is to really listen astutely to what the person is telling you and ask those critical questions of like, this is a problem today, and if I could solve that, what would you do tomorrow?
Right.
And then they're like, oh, well, I just thought about today.
Right.
Fire put out. It's like, well, what would you do if I could just put that aside and make that all better for you? Now, what would you like to do? Now, because you can't really think of efficiencies if you're always trying to survive.
Right.
That's that point of really trying to, you know, some businesses are operating truly in a survival mode that doesn't allow for efficiencies or cost effectiveness, any of those kind of things. You're really kind of strapped. I just need this to work.
Right.
And specifically, we talk about this a lot in the Black community. Many of the businesses are not participating in tech because it's too expensive, it's enterprise, all this. This is where we run into like, oh, I'll just Jimmy rig it until becomes never, because you're working in your business.
Right.
You're never working on your business. And that's where blockchain as a service also comes in. You don't need the enterprise. We're not trying to sell you into this behemoth of a system. You get to take advantage of the emerging technologies, but at a price point that's sufficient for you. Right. And we also have to tell people that, because they instantly go, oh, well, that's, you know, I can't use AI because it's too expensive.
Right.
We're thinking of it from, we're not servicing Amazon. We're servicing the mom and pop that is using, you know, a little kiosk.
Right.
We can help you. We can do that, but they're not aware of that. So I think it's the full gamut of listening to really what the criticality is of the problem, and then finding the optimal solution that can grow with them instead of just fixing it now, because that's not going to work.
Right.
Never going to get that to work.
Yeah.
You know, can I say this too? Like, I wonder, because I think about, you know, I wrote down when you had increased revenue, one of those is expanding customers, retaining customers, and also you put down new markets. Yeah. And, you know, like we've talked about this too in our inner circle meetings where we've had this discussion. You know, I think about that and what that means, especially, and once again, I'm just telling you, when you look at tokenization, listen, let me just say this, okay? Especially, I think about this from customers. Your customers to me are like, when you talk about real feedback, they're going to give you the best feedback.
Yes.
Now, the issue is, how do you incentivize them? Like, you know, let me just say, there's a certain airline that I fly all the time. I have a lot of miles racked up with them. And, you know, every time I get off the plane, you know, I'll get this little slip about, you know, filling out this survey. And it'll say, oh, yeah, but you may possibly win $250. Look, I throw the thing in the trash can. I'm not trying to play around with this whole thing of this crapshoot. I don't got time for that. I'm tired of getting off the plane. That's it. I'm going to keep it moving, and that's it. Now, here's the deal. If they were to incentivize that, because I'm going to give them value. I mean, real value. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Seats were really cramped. You know what? Hey, listen, this flight from New York to LA, I do think that we could do a much better, you know, with the food service or that sort of thing. Or no, or it could just be, doesn't have to be a criticism. It could just be like, you know what, this plane was great. Flight attendants were amazing. Plane was super clean. That sort of thing. All of that's very valuable that I'm giving to them. But how do you but here's the deal. They're going to take what I'm giving to them, and they are going to use it and improve or either correct something going on. But how do you incentivize me to do that? Telling me to do that and saying, oh, it's just a nice thing to do. No, I go help the little old lady across the street. That's a nice thing to do. Helping billion-dollar airline get better and make money. No, you need to make sure that value is shared in some sort of way. I'm not saying it has to, and that to me, when I look at it, is bringing people in so they can now start thinking about that and going, you know what, you're right. Like, we can do this in a way that would be much better for that. Maybe we start doing that, and you know what? Every single one you get is transacted in a tokenized format. Next thing you know, when I'm flying, my meal is free. Okay? Because then I have done that. I've done that, and I've given them that value. So I do see that part of this is us helping those in the business begin to understand, begin to expand, expand just what blockchain can provide for them so they can understand it.
And I think Talisha might have mentioned it in the last meeting or meeting before that we may need to just have kind of the easiest entry type of solutions. And so one of those was, I think you said, customer feedback, actually rewarding customers for providing feedback. And that could be a company's introduction, like setting up a system where there's this tokenization or reward system that you can get much more feedback coming into your system, which will improve your business. And, you kind of have a blockchain platform set up in order to kind of have that loop being generated. And then the customer can see the benefits out of that. Then they can take it to the next level. And so probably customer feedback might be the most easily digestible way to bring blockchain into a business.
It's simple. I mean, it's relative. Everybody knows. Everybody's like, would you fill out the survey? Right. Everybody knows and kind of hoes and hums. But the issue is, like, what if we made it in the sense of the incentivization is right there at the beginning?
Instant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need this from you. Thank
Right.
you for participating in my service, but I need something for you because you're a valued customer and you didn't even do anything. You just showed up. That instantly would put you like, well, oh, okay.
I'll take my time and do this for you.
Like, what are you asking? Like, I've already set you up. You don't even know what I'm asking. I didn't say how many questions. I just said, I need something for you. Would you be able? Okay. And I present that to you. And that is a really good onboarding tool in the sense of not only for, I would say, applications, but businesses. Like, I always think, like, I love things that tell me, like, take me through the process while I'm doing them. Like, brand new apps are like, okay, sometimes they onboard you. Sometimes it's like, I got to hunt and peck and find that's not cool. But if you're saying, hey, if you take this time to do it this way, this is your reward. This is what we're going to give you. We're going to open up this for you or do something. And I think of businesses, specifically startups, needing that critical feedback at that really integral stage of their business to really help them ramp up their service, because they might be going in the wrong direction, or like, this was too hard and they just keep chugging away. They can make those pivots much more. And that's where agility comes in. Whereas you go to a company that's already established, now they need to figure out what is their new market. They're stuck because they've been doing the same old. Now they're looking for that fresh perspective, and they just can't ask the new people or the old people. So these are all that kind of gambit is already in there for everybody has a piece of that, but the technology supports all of that. So again, it's just like, what's your problem? Where are you? And then we can retrofit whatever you need from these bits and pieces of things that we have. And that's all emerging technology. That's not just blockchain.
Right.
And can I say that too, Talisha? Like, you think about it too, and there is that point, yes, where you have companies, startups. It's probably much easier probably for them, to begin to integrate. Well, maybe, but it could be much easier for maybe some startups that are just starting off to integrate blockchain and as they're moving, rather than some of those really large behemoths trying to like they're like big battleships and them trying to like move and like, oh my God,
make that
mess. Yeah, but if you do look at it at the same time, that look at it, it's like, how hard is this? Like, everybody and their mama has an app for their product, whatever, which I kind of like sometimes I find it like just ridiculous. Like, why would I want to put like stupid Popeye's app on my phone? You're an idiot for doing that. You know what I mean? But like, I look at stuff like that. But speaking of these airlines, okay, they all have apps on that. So how hard is that to have a crypto wallet integrated into their app, so that the lady's handing me a piece of paper. Like, I don't have time for that. But if it's already into your app, and then you could go ahead and do it, you could fill it out there, and it's in a tokenized format, and it could be dang near instantaneous.
But that's a good point. Could it be that these companies, that these big companies that are implementing or seeking to implement blockchain are looking at it in this massive state, right? Blockchain as solving all the problems, and not looking at it in that small piece of, that small sliver that you just mentioned. Maybe they need to come down and scale down and start small and then grow, because what'll happen is valued customers like you will grow with them and not be intimidated with the growth, because it's slow and steady, versus let's just throw blockchain all at this whole business model.
And that's the point. I think this is a great part, and I always talk about HHS, which is Health and Human Services. government agencies are just, ridiculous. They have red tape and all this. And they didn't start by saying, oh, let's just rework the entire system. They did something really, really small. It was a procurement. This is a use case. And that's, I also say, this is going to be the biggest aspect of finding use cases that really speak to a problem. But like I said, it's not going to throw up the whole table. And they took a very small thing and said, okay, we're not getting rid of anything. We're just going to run this in parallel. We're going to run this use case and take the same information we get. We're going to do this all internally and just see. We're just going to test and learn and not involve anybody and just do our little thing. They showed $7 million at the end of this little test. Oh, and it was their own data. Wow. They weren't using anything but their own stuff.
Right.
So that showed them oh, wait a minute, let's talk about this. And again, that's sometimes you have to show rather than tell.
Yeah.
You big companies really want to, you can do the razzle dazzle presentations and you're like, okay, that presentation really spoke to great stuff, but I don't know how this will work.
Exactly.
You show them that small use case and say, let us show you what this can do, the capacity, and then let's scale. Because you don't, like I said, no technology is we're going to throw every server away and come in with some new heavy hitter. Nothing works that way, ever, ever, ever. Even, and I said, we'll talk about healthcare. When we went to electronic health records, it wasn't like all of a sudden you had to be up and running. That took a long time to do. And it was incremental. And that's, I think, the best part about it is when you see the incremental growth, because you can get excited even with the littlest things. You can say, oh, that worked. Oh, that gave me a little bit more. And you build upon that, even if it's internal to your systems. You get to see that. And like I said, your customers just see the value improvement. They don't know what you're doing in the back end. They just see their experience is much better. It's yep, they responded to me. I text them on my app, but I got my email. They wanted across platforms. They want it integrated. They don't care what the back end looks like. They're really important. Did it make me feel good? Did it save me time? Did it save me money?
Right.
And that really will translate to you making more money.
That's right.
If you give them, give them what they like, because Eric is gonna give it. He will fly if you don't give him that.
He don't want
that. Yeah, I might even post about it. Who knows?
Look, they gave me, and I think even the integration portion, if it was in the app and seamless, again, because that's where the UX comes in. You don't need to know all the bits and pieces.
Exactly.
But it just seems and I could see the little, the coin getting bigger or more coins in there. That would just make somebody giddy. They don't know that it's a crypto wallet. They don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Make it seamless for them as well, because there's an education piece that you want to learn, shorten that learning curve and make it just a blissful experience. You don't want to be okay, now you got to put a password in. Now you got to go to this app to put this in. Nobody's going to want to do that. They're not going to have time for that. But if you make it seamless, and that's, again, where tokenization comes in, because it's based upon your ecosystem. They get to use it in there. Only when you want to exchange and do something else does it kind of take it outside. But if you create and craft, they're going to stay there and be participating, because it's oh, I get more rewards when I do this, or oh, I get this when I do that. And they're more apt to continue within the ecosystem that you provide for them, because it's great and nice.
So I have a question, because you all have been in the game for a while now.
Yeah.
So when
We've been in the game for a long time, right?
So when you probably talk to companies who are interested in learning more about blockchain. I mean, what is that typical initial discussion like? Do you find that most companies just have a passing interest in saying, tell me what this blockchain means, and and they just go away and try to think about if it's useful, or do they mostly know what it's about and they just want you to come in and I don't know, implement some type of blockchain solution for them? Or is it just kind of a wide-ranging type of thing? What's been your experience with companies approaching you?
It's definitely been the unlearning. I think I usually go in and they're just okay, tell me all about this Bitcoin stuff. And I'm oh, that's not what it's about. It's that very first introduction. So specifically in the beginning, when we very first started, it was really all about cryptocurrency. And that was because that was the information given. Mm-hmm. They couldn't understand the technology. They didn't even know what the technology was when I was well, there's a Bitcoin blockchain and a Bitcoin cryptocurrency. And they're like, what? I'm like, big B, little b. And they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I'm like, are you trying to use Bitcoin blockchain? They're like, what is she talking about? So then it was like scaling back and just asking them questions. Like, what do you want to do? Like, I didn't even have that conversation of like, blockchain is cool. I'll explain it to you, but tell me more about you. It's just like I always say, it's like going on a date. I let them talk to me about them for the longest time. And then I interjected, well, this is where the technology could actually help you. It has these specific attributes that may be of interest to you. And I would just kind of just show them at a very high level. There were some that would bring their CIO or their CTO, and then they were really like, I need to know what the protocol level is. I need to know what this is. And then I could have that real hardcore tech conversation. But the majority, by far, I would say 9 out of 10 were just like, explain this to me. What is it? How does it even work? What is it here to stay? Like, how does it not be my database? Like, those kind of really, I would say, high level conversations and questions. And it was just more like, I'm educating you and untraining you to think of it from a cryptocurrency standpoint.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know, it's funny. I was having a conversation today, and this conversation was in my day job as a music publisher, talking with a startup. And today, they were going through it was a new platform is going to be launching. And, we had the attorney on, and they were talking about the things that are going to happen with the platform. And they came to this one issue. And I was like, ooh, that could be an issue. And the attorney was like, yeah, that could be a problem, and then they started talking about it. And it was basically a point where a certain amount of streams got to a certain point, and then a new action needed to happen once it got to that point. And I remember, and I told them, I said, listen, this is perfect for a blockchain solution on a smart contract. Now, at that point, it was like deer in the headlights look. like, what kind of English is he talking about? And I said, look, I'll come back to y'all later. Let me just drop it.
Like that was a little something.
I just throw you a taste. Wait till you hear about tokens,
Right. So, I've had a similar situation. I'm an HR professional by trade. And we were working through some problems, and I was like, blockchain could completely manage this problem. And everybody, of course, looked at me like, first of all, what's blockchain, and why do you know anything tech? Right? Because I'm in a room full of techies. Why do you know this, right? Because you're just HR. I think the problem is there's still such a learning curve. We always hear how early in this process we are, but sometimes it's hard to believe how true, because we're not used to being early, right? First of all, we're not used to being early to anything, right?
Right.
So when we're so early to a conversation like this, it almost takes you aback, like, wait a minute, why don't they all see the potential that I can see, right? And why don't they already know about it? So it's the perfect time for us to insert ourselves and start to slowly educate, right? But there's definitely a learning curve. So I think what Talisha said is right, identifying where their pain points and their problems are, and then making those subtle suggestions, and then giving them small pieces of how the technology can help, right? Don't throw the whole blockchain, real business of blockchain book and hit them in the head with it, right?
Here, read this.
Here, read this. That's
your homework.
Just
tell me when you're done.
From a little bit at a time, right? And then set up that second meeting to revisit, and then tell them some more, and keep those connections going until you can help them understand all the ways this can assist them. But we're still so early to this party.
Yeah, okay, can I tell you something that's really interesting about that, Tawana, what you just said? I don't know if you guys have seen that, what's happening with MicroStrategy, the company MicroStrategy. And she's shaking her head. So MicroStrategy, big organization. Approximately, Talisha, probably, what was that, like 7 years ago? The CEO was out saying, Bitcoin's, worthless, it's going to zero, or, and everything like that. And now made a complete pivot. We're now, what is it, Talisha, now up to like 400?
Yes,
$450 million of their capital, of their liquid capital they convert to Bitcoin.
Like, they changed their whole entire business structure, their monetary, it's amazing, but I think that's also a proof. Like, they may not know, and as I said, people get to talking like, oh, this is just the farce. They do the little hand waving, and then we see the Wells Fargo and all those businesses. There's somebody in there that knows something's going on, and they're just like, well, you keep talking, but it's changing. And they're really, that's where the advisor, and I think this is the critical moment for consultants, because there are people who don't know what they don't know, and they're just really confident. And then you're just that person like, I saw you and I have a little something for you to think about. And you're that nugget that just connects the dots for them. And then they just shift towards you because you can speak to them again about the problem, not about the tech, but it's like, okay, I see that you have this thing, but did you know this could happen? Did you know that you do it in this manner? And that's all that it takes. I think that's where it's super funny to see like where we came from. Like I started here in like 2016. And again, that whole, we were always about blockchain. Like we talked about the crypto because that's where the socialization part was, but we were always blockchain consultants. And I think it took about probably until like 2018, until early 2019, people were like, oh, it's a business application. You're like, well, we've been saying that. But like we kind of said that for a long time, but you didn't want to listen. And then it was just like, oh, the minute that it could be something else, then they were a little more receptive.
Right.
And I think that's where it all comes through. It's still like, we can't talk about the tech without talking about a problem.
The business problem.
And that's really where people are, like I said, that FOMO comes in because they hear the buzzwords. Like I always say, like DeFi is the buzzword.
Yeah.
Smart contracts. That's all that means. It's going to have different ripple effects. And some people are going to like, oh, what did you say about that? And other people are like, oh, that's just, that techie thingy. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So you really find that, I always say, just be that person in the know that can speak to it and speak to problems and just say, well, that can address that in many different ways. It really doesn't need to be all technical. As I say, most of my conversations are not technical conversations.
Okay.
Even though I'm a technical person.
Consultation shouldn't be, right?
Correct.
That's not a consultant's role. That's when you bring the CIO with you, right? Or the tech person. You don't become that person. Talisha is an anomaly in that she's both, right? And so, she's the wild card. When she enters the room, she can talk the consultant stuff, she can talk tech. And because we work together, she does normal speak very well. So I know that, right? Because I'm not a techie. You got to tell it to me in English, right? And so she is truly an anomaly in that she's both, but you don't have to be both.
You don't.
You can just be a strong consultant. And Percy, you brought some great, tips and education to us this evening that allows us to be just that, right? Keeping it all in perspective of what we need and how we need to address the customer to at the end of the day, go back to what their needs and their concerns actually are. What are their problems, right? And make it about them. And then if you need to have that deep dive into tech and you don't feel comfortable doing that, you have to have someone on your team that can. Right. And you bring them into the second meeting, right?
Exactly.
Or the fifth meeting.
Or the fifth meeting, right.
I loved your presentation is that it does talk about, like I said, again, the business agnostic things. Those industries everybody is looking for that, especially now. Like I said, COVID has exasperated some of the things.
Right.
That, that business, we're like, oh, we can just settle, or we are okay with losing that. Now you can't lose money.
Right.
You can't lose your employee. You're trying to. And we had a great presentation last Wednesday, odom.net, talking about reskilling, thinking about education. And I think like, how wonderful would a solution internal to your organization tell you how your employees want to be, what they want to do and how they can help. You hired them for one thing. You never knew they had that skill.
Right.
And now they're just like, oh yeah, I do that forever just because it's fun to me. And you're like, oh, could you help me? That's where you could leverage a blockchain. And most people are like, oh, I never thought about it. It can be a very internal system that just gives you insights, protected insights into however you want to move throughout your business. And again, keeping all that information, even if it's not the full robust aspect of being decentralized, it has some level of, centralization, or maybe even a level of distribution within some connective communities. You still get some bang for your buck. Like I think people always say it has to be all or nothing. And we're not there yet. No technology is being utilized at its full capacity. We didn't use the internet for anything besides chat rooms and email when it came out. No one about an e-commerce platform, and now everybody working from home and working on school. It wasn't meant for that. It wasn't even envisioned for that. That's why you have to take that customer journey. And I think that was the pivotal part, is that if you give them the ability to think even further than they can.
Further than that, right.
Because people are, oh, I just have this problem, solve it right now. You're like, I want your business to grow. I really want you to go
That's
that
right.
whole place. And if you can give them that, that's the consultant's job, is to make them think outside that box.
Think bigger.
Right. Yeah. I think, Eric, you were trying to say something.
No, you know what? Is one thing I was going to add to that too, is, and this is strange, I'm just going to throw this out. Things are much more accelerated nowadays than they are, I think, probably ever, because one caveat with that micro strategy, I read it from the CEO, his whole excerpt. He talked about it. Do you not know it took him from the first day of just thinking about it to 90 days, and they made that decision. And he said that he had he pulled everybody in from the company and said, look, everybody right now, go and study this thing hard. And they were watching some of the same podcasts that we watch. And that's how they were learning it, from the same stuff. And that's it. And think about that. They went from that point to such a major decision to say, you know what? And at first point, they were going to go, okay, we're going to like kind of mix it up. It'll be part gold, maybe a little bit of part Bitcoin. They went from that to through that process and we're going to make it all Bitcoin. All of our cash reserves, we're going to convert them all to Bitcoin.
Wow.
But it was amazing to me to see the acceleration of that, of going from, we don't even know what this is, to, okay, let's put it all in there.
That's pretty drastic, but that also shows you, again, all the level of consultancy that had to happen, because they didn't do that internally.
Right.
They had to probably a pool of consultants, like,
Totally.
do this, tell me that, whatever. And that's why I said sometimes it's not about knowing everything. There's not everything to know. Know one small part really, really well, so you can like there's connectivity pieces, but don't expect to know everything there is, because first of all, it changes. Tech is not going to ever be stagnant. It's a very dynamic thing, but also you need to be able to pretty much consult on that one thing and then say, well, we'll need to consult with somebody else, because you don't want to seem to be a jack of all trades and just know a little bit about a little bit, because then that really doesn't help them. They're not really getting the full effect, because you do need somebody that has that ability to say, I know where that's going, or that's not going to work with that. So and everything keeps going on and on.
So I saw a question in the list here. I think the person is asking, okay, let's say you go and consult and have that introductory conversation. Once the customer is convinced, yes, I want to do this, who's doing the implementation of that? Or is that like something that you're staying engaged with the whole
There's
time?
a whole bunch. And I think that's where, again, the bottom question is like, what kind of blockchain do you want? Because most people aren't building their own. That's the first thing. So you don't have to, it's not like we got a code specifically for you. If you're using Ethereum for smart contracts, then you get on. You want to use Bitcoin as your blockchain. So there's different companies and services. Like I said, there's a lot of blockchain as a service coming. There's a lot of little pockets for those kind of things. And some of it is smart contracts, like really building the smart contract part first and then finding a place to host it. So again, there's a lot of different things. It's not just like one person. You really have to find the actual environment that's doing what they need to do. And again, some people have regulations of, like, they do need a hybrid. Some people need parts of it to be public and some of it to be private. There's not a lot of people that can do that right now. So you have to be very specific, and like, because some people say they can do it, and then you go and look at that back end, you're like, this isn't really what you said.
But that's the homework, right? So that's the homework a consultant has to do, is to start establishing those relationships with the people doing or providing these services, right? Because, you are not the programmer. You're not going to build it for them. So you have to have these relationships. And so when the client tells you what the pain point is and what solution they're needing, you then know what business to go to or businesses, right? Because you always want to have more than one to recommend to them, and then have a relationship on that side of the house with the business to then be able to make that introduction. And then they will decide if you stay for the journey, right? And who you're representing on that journey. So I think that's part of building your consultant business.
When we first started, and again, this is almost 3 years ago, Eric and I would just talk to people on Twitter. We would just kind of find people like, hey, what you doing over there? And some of them would respond, and some of them like, you kooks, or just go away. Like, but Simba Chain was always there. We were like, hey, we're here. We would love to help you. They're like, we don't know what to help yet to ask for, but we're going to engage you. And they kept talking to us, and we kept going back and about. We built a wonderful relationship to the point where we signed an initiative, one of the largest initiatives with that company from an educational standpoint, to offer a smart contracting building. That's a relationship that really took some time to nurture and to go. And so now when people ask me, I just recommended Simba Chain to a vendor to be like, they're like, I need these kind of things, but I need these components, and I'm not really sure. And I really want to be able to explain it to both my business team, and I don't really have the development budget right now. And I was like, Simba Chain will do all that for you. And that's only because I've used them, I've known them, I've had this relationship with them for years, and it works. But that's something that you have to build. And I think that's really the most important part. Again, consultancy is really about talking and listening much more than the technical version, because you'll find that somebody will say, this is what I do and how I do it. And we can vet that very well. Like I can tell you in seconds what is a good blockchain and what isn't. Like I can just see, I'm like, show me your back end. Well, let me see your code. And then if I see something, it's like, nope, that's not even gonna work. It's so easy at this point. But there's other things that have to work too. But that's, like I said, that's not your wheelhouse. Don't try it. Don't project that, and don't represent yourself as that, because you can get yourself in trouble. Just stick to finding out those pain points and really, I think, analyzing what can be done, and then come back. And I think that's where Black blockchain consultants do a really good job, because we bring things together. Like somebody's like, oh, I heard about this, or I talked to somebody about this, and we brainstorm and we get a whole bunch of ideas based upon just that little nugget, and we give them a full kind of like, you could do this and you could do this, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know I had that many options. And people love options. So it's just what it is. It's like, yeah, you don't have to choose one or two. We give you 5, and they're like, oh, that's amazing. So that's what we can do. So hopefully that answered your question. Great.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation tonight. I don't join often, so I always pick the sessions I join very strategically.
She came only because of you, Percy.
I came because of you, Percy. I've been hearing how awesome Percy was, and I was like, I want to see what's going on.
You hang out with the scrubs, Percy, so you got her. She's here only because.
Well, Wednesdays are rough for me because I have an 8:30 meeting that normally goes till 10:30, and then I normally have something at 6. So I take this time, and sometimes I just need to just like breathe, right? But tonight I said, what's all the buzz about Percy? Right? And so now I know why they are so in awe of you. And so thank you so very much for taking the time to do this and talk to us. Don't be a stranger. There's a seat here for you every week if you want it, brother.
Absolutely.
Well, I will join. You know, if you think I can help contribute to the conversation, I'm happy to join. And
always.
You know, so I'm glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Well, this is wonderful. Everyone, thank you for joining us. You guys have a wonderful evening as well, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Good night.